Hello, it is Thursday, it's 4 o'clock, it must be the Etch Play weekly live show, and some absolute imbecile has put me in charge of things again this week. I'm Dan, and I am joined by Tyre. Tyre, how are we doing?
We're doing super good, Dan. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. So, yes, we have got a marvellous show lined up today. We will, of course, be going through the week's games industry news. We will be checking out a little indie title called Farmers Stealing Tanks, which is a bit of fun. And I will be talking about my favourite subject, which is selling stuff. So everybody loves a salesman, and as much as I hate to admit it, that's kind of my job. So yeah, we're going to be digging into that. But let's take a look at the week's news first of all. So first up, we have got the news that PlayStation have acquired Haven Studios. As a result of the deal, Haven has become Sony's first Canadian studio. Headed up by Assassin's Creed veteran Jade Raymond, the studio will be working on an exclusive live service game for the PlayStation 5, built upon a systemic and evolving world. Haven has over 60 employees and is the 18th developer to join the PlayStation Studios family. It's yet another example of the growing trend towards acquisitions being made by some of gaming's biggest companies, and I don't think there's a week goes by that we don't have some sort of acquisition news. But I think this is a very smart one. I'm a huge fan of the work Jade Raymond does. She's been in the industry a long time. She was a fundamental part of the original Assassin's Creed, and I think led as executive producer on a number of those. She also formed EA's Motive. More recently was a part of Google Stadia, but then went off on her own to spin up Haven Studios, which was, I think there was investment from Sony early on, and yeah, they've just officially announced they are being acquired. Is Jade Raymond somebody you're familiar with, Tyre?
Vaguely, not as much detail as you, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed, so definitely a big fan of, I guess, the impact that they've had.
I was doing a bit of searching, and she was also involved in The Sims as well in a previous life.
Oh, wow.
She's got a very strong heritage, and very smart move by Sony to pick up Haven Studios. What else have we got in the news, Tyre?
So something that I've been very excited about this week is the new controller designs that have been unveiled by Xbox. So the Spring Collection has just been unveiled, featuring a variety of bright and light colours such as lavender swirl, cotton candy blue, pink lemonade, purple camo, and pastel dream. But the controller announcement that really got people talking was the limited edition Sonic the Hedgehog controllers, which are sadly only being given away as part of a competition and aren't available for sale. I really hope that Ben J's got his finger on the trigger for this one, because I'm sure he would love to win one of them. They are furry, apparently, with one being blue to stand for Sonic, and one being red for Knuckles. And prize winners will also receive a Sonic branded Xbox Series S, which is pretty exciting. And this was a partnership in celebration of the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie, which opens in the UK on April 1st. So some very interesting design choices. I'm not sure I've ever seen a controller that was furry before, but
They look really good fun. I really want a furry controller now. They kind of look like little monsters or something.
They do. They look like they'd be comfy. Like maybe if you're cold, you've got like a warm, a nice cuddly controller that you can play with. But yeah, personally, I'm kind of more excited about the pastel designs. They're definitely up for brand. I mean, you can very much see the color combos that I might go for. But unfortunately, I do not own an Xbox. So who knows? Maybe I'll get one for my PC just to
finally get you familiar with a game controller. Die-hard PC mouse and keyboard fan. What else have we got? Snoop Dogg is coming to Call of Duty Vanguard. Famous rapper Snoop Dogg is being added to Vanguard, Warzone, and Call of Duty Mobile as a playable operator. On 4/19 or 19th of April, sadly not 4/20, Snoop will come to Warzone and Vanguard, while his mobile debut will arrive earlier on April 1st as part of a lucky draw loot box. It's not the first time Snoop has engaged with the Call of Duty universe, previously lending his voice talent to a DLC for Call of Duty Ghosts that let you select him as the voice of the announcer in your multiplayer games. I mean, Snoop Dogg is just everywhere, isn't he? I mean, what a titan of the self-branding entrepreneurial spirit. So, yeah, are you excited to see Snoop Dogg in Call of Duty, Tyre?
For sure. I mean, Snoop Dogg is one of those household names that you just, if you see him come up anywhere, you kind of just have to smile. I mean, my favorite cameo of his is definitely the Just Eat adverts. I mean, they're just excellent and nothing really to do with him at all, but just having him in them just makes it perfect.
Yeah, and I think it also just kind of highlights just how mainstream games are now. Like that's just it's about as household or a pop culture a name as you could get, and yeah, he's like literally featuring in one of the world's biggest games. Very, very impressive. And talking of world's biggest games, any other news along those lines?
Well, one of the biggest news this week has really definitely been the Witcher 4 announcement. So I'm sure the news hasn't surprised anyone because we kind of knew that CD Projekt Red were maybe going to make another Witcher game based on the success of Witcher 3. They haven't announced any names or anything like that, but we're calling it Witcher 4. And there's not that much detail around it. One thing that we do know is that the game will be developed using the Unreal 5 engine, which marks a departure from their own bespoke Red engine. Engines, in case you're not familiar, are tools that help studios make games, and most big games rely on some kind of engine. It's becoming increasingly common to see large studios coalescing around the biggest engines in the industry, allowing them to find talent easier and hopefully benefit from the larger community of developers using the tools. Reports late last year suggested that BioWare were making a very similar move for Mass Effect 4, so moving, I believe, from the Frostbite engine to Unreal. Witcher 3 has been enormously successful, becoming a household name in RPGs and sparking interest in the Witcher IP. And Netflix have produced a show based on the fantasy, which is very good. I've recently watched season 2, which was not sure if it was as good as season 1, but it was very good nevertheless. And The Witcher 3 is currently available on many platforms. While the newest title from CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077, had a bit of a rocky release due to some technical issues and was recently updated to fix a number of performance problems. I'm super excited. I was a very big fan of Witcher 3. And what I'm excited about, which I think some people were disappointed with, is if you are very eagle-eyed, like I am, you would have noticed that the promo, the image they were using for this game, had a medallion of a lynx. A lynx, which is not a school of witches that is present in canon, actually. There is the cat school, which is something that you can kind of find out more about if you play the games. But there is no lynx school, and actually recently CD Projekt Red did put out a statement that said that it wasn't a cat, it was very specifically a lynx. So it does make me curious about, what the new saga will be. It sounds like it definitely probably won't follow Geralt this time around, which is a bit bittersweet because, everyone loves Geralt. But I think his story is definitely kind of wrapped up quite nicely with Witcher 3. So it'd be nice to see what else we can learn about this world that's out there. You're a fan of The Witcher then?
Yeah, I loved The Witcher 3, loved the Netflix series. I was very excited to see the announcement. I do agree. I think they termed it like a completely new adventure or something like that to kind of indicate, this is, and they say with the links rather than the wolf is what
the wolf
Geralt's would have been. So that's exciting. I think there's some interesting, business strategy. Perhaps had Cyberpunk maybe fared a little better from a reception point of view, CD Projekt might have milked that for a little bit longer before sort of rushing into the next big announcement. But The Witcher is such a powerful brand that there's a lot of excitement around that. yeah, very much looking forward to it. So each week we try to celebrate something meaningful and powerful coming out of the world of games, sort of the games for good. We believe games can be a force for good and definitely a positive contribution to modern life. And this week, really exciting to be able to report that Epic, the company that runs the monstrous title Fortnite, they are in the process of doing some fundraising for humanitarian causes in Ukraine, and they've announced that they have already raised £37 million. That's about $50 million was a milestone they hit. And what they're doing is, I think they're donating all of it's either all of the Fortnite profits or all of Epic Games' profit from yesterday up until the 3rd of April, which is a very generous contribution. Apparently the values have exceeded the donations from some countries. So that's a really positive thing and a really great thing for Epic to be doing to demonstrate their support for the people of Ukraine. So that's really, really good to see.
It's really good.
Talking of Ukraine, another little fun story that came about is somebody made a game. So there was a news item that a farmer in Ukraine was using his tractor to tow Russian tanks that had run out of fuel, and he was basically stealing them. So somebody has made a game. I think it was part of some sort of course that they were doing. They put the game available for free, and it's called Farmers Stealing Tanks. And this has kind of been like a mini viral hit. And I've checked this out recently, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. You play as a farmer driving a tank, as we can see here. And tanks are running out of fuel around your farm in your homelands, and you get to go and pick them up and bring them back to your shed. And yeah, I thought that's a great thing. And what's great about it is the developer who made the game has been really encouraging people to go and donate initially for a Ukrainian orphanage, and they've had loads of coverage. Bit of a mini viral hit, which is really great with that kind of call to action for people to donate to the orphanage. Sadly, the orphanage did get affected by the situation that's going on over there, and kind of had to focus on supporting their people, helping them get out of the conflict zones and things like that. But they're still the developer is still kind of signposting charitable causes. I think they've created some merch that you can get, t-shirts and things, and he's donating all of the profits from that to support humanitarian causes as well. So this is farmers stealing tanks. What do you think, guys? It look good?
Looks very interesting. I really love like the really simple but like stylized style of it. It has that style of a game that could be something someone made over a weekend, but also could be something someone made over 3 years, and you can't quite tell.
Yeah, and to his credit, this was, I think the guy made it in a week, and there's been some updates
very
since.
Impressive.
But yeah, it's really cute, and it's surprising. You'll probably notice as I get the tanks back to the shed, it's really difficult to reverse a tractor whilst towing a tank. It's not as easy as it looks.
No. Definitely some challenge there. I do love the confetti though, I must say. That's so satisfying. Like for every tank you get a nice little burst.
Exactly. And yeah, there's been features added, so you can see there's helicopters that also run out of fuel, and you can collect them. And there's these drinks as well that you can pick up that make you go twice as fast. And I can't remember the name, but it's like a really famous Ukrainian brand of vodka that really gives you that supercharged power up.
Amazing.
And it's quite addictive. It's very easy to pick up. It's just very simple. WASD or arrow keys controls, easy to connect up to the tanks, and I've seen some really good example of kind of, I guess, the art side of games. I think this person clearly had picked up on the news of what was going on and the actions of brave people in Ukraine, and wanted to, I guess, celebrate that and also share share the messaging, and what a great medium and what a really good implementation to achieve that. Getting a little bit lost here. even though there's a big white arrow telling me where to take my tank, I'm just like, here's a farm, let's go get that. I've been completely ignoring everybody in the chat. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. We've got Tony is in there, Press Engine, hey, how are we doing? Saucy CHP, hello, thank you for joining us. Jam, Egg and Chips, Gam, as always, thanks for tuning in. Experimental Space, can you not drive straight into the path? You have to reverse. Now you've said it, I don't know. I feel like you had to reverse, but maybe you could just drive through it. But yeah, so there we go. That was farmers stealing tanks. Right, I'm just going to now switch us back to... let's see if I can coordinate this. So now what we need to do, normally we've pre-recorded the gameplay footage, but we've not done that today. So I'm going to just quickly switch us over, and we're going to magically transform my wonderful guest into a less wonderful guest. So thank you, Tyre, for joining us, and we're now going to chat about cells, and we're going to bring Ben Joy into the scene if he's around. There we are. Hello, Ben.
Hello. How's it going?
Welcome. Yes, very good. How seamless a transition was that, hey?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Pros.
So yeah, a few other comments. Are there no ramps? I want to see a flying tractor snag a chopper.
That would be
smooth
cool.
like butter. So yeah, Ben. How do you fancy listening and contributing to a fun conversation on sales and selling stuff?
Well, I'm here now, so
you're here now.
I will participate. No, that sounds good. Let's do it. Let's dive into the world of sales.
Yes. So yeah, I've kind of been pondering whether this is a subject that people would be interested in. It's perhaps a bit of a prickly subject. Sales has a very bad reputation. And particularly, so what I want to talk about is sales and selling, specifically B2B or business-to-business sales, and even more specifically, sales within the games industry. Like sales has got a bad reputation, and it's completely understandable, and I completely get it. Like none of us like being on the receiving end of the hard sell. We don't like being cold called. We've all been spammed to the brink of our tolerance, and I think generally, even myself, I wouldn't position myself as a salesperson, although that is a key part of my job. And actually, sales isn't a bad thing, and in fact, you wouldn't have any form of business if there weren't sales. But yeah, there's definitely good sales and there's definitely bad sales and the hard sell, and we're all kind of, I guess, very familiar with the latter. So yeah, I wanted to talk about how we approach things, some of the lessons we've learned. In the comments, not sure if people will be interested in this has ever stopped us. That's absolutely true. Yeah, we don't worry about things like popularity and good content not on this show, do we?
Nah.
And yeah, so talking about sales it's not actually just a business concern. Selling is an essential skill for all of us. Even if you don't work in sales, you don't have a sales role. When you are, say, applying for a job, you are effectively selling yourself. You have to explain the benefits and your skills and the traits, what makes you a good hire, and that is a form of sales. And even beyond work at all, when we go to school, go to university, move somewhere new, you kind of have to create your new community and ingratiate yourself. And again, you're doing this process of selling yourself. You need to make friends, or even as far as like dating, you have to sell yourself and convince the other person that you're worth spending some time with. So I do think it's an important subject, and yeah, I figured we'd have a talk about it within the context of the games industry, selling into the games industry, how that might work, how you could do it right, how you can do it wrong.
Yep, sounds good. I think it's even when you mentioned about selling yourself, like even when you're in a job, like the work you do, you have to sell that often. Like, there's not often you do some work and no one is interested. You do some work and then you have to sell, you sell it to whoever needs the work. You sell what you've done. So, and if there was no sales, we wouldn't be able to buy everything. We buy things every day of our lives. So sales can't be that
exactly.
bad, right?
Exactly. It's a fundamental part of the world we live in. And I think it's probably better to talk about it and discuss ways in which we can make it approachable and digestible and good for everyone, because everybody buys stuff, and so we need to be sold to. Let's just do it the right way. So specifically the games industry, so I guess this is just kind of some of my observations and my experience. We have been operating within the games industry for coming up to 10 years. I've been kind of running a business for 20 years, and I guess it's nice to have that contrast of wider business and enterprise and the kind of the generic digital sector, and then the differences within the games industry. And whilst perhaps it's a little bit cliche, but the games industry is very much unique. It is a different space to operate, and if you've got a service or an expertise or a skill, a product that you want to engage with the games industry with, you really got to understand that this is a different sector, and it's really worth putting in the effort to understand the sector. It is a very passion-fueled industry. So there are a lot of people who really genuinely love what they do, and they do what they do because it is their it's their hobby, and it's kind of what they are absolutely committed to. So you really got to understand that this is a passion-fueled industry and people care about what they do. Another interesting thing, which is kind of obvious and maybe it shouldn't be so sector specific, but it really does stand out, is that quality, creativity, the technical bar within games is so high. I mean, when you think of the best examples of entertainment products or cinematography and storytelling, art and all these kinds of things, like you can find a absolute quality example within the games industry, and you need to understand that is a high bar, and that was something really challenging for us. I think when we pivoted and started focusing on games, and we care about what we do a lot, and I'd like to think we deliver quality work, but maybe the eye for design, creativity, performance isn't quite the same when you're working in, let's say, a hospitality sector or a perhaps finance or medical or any of these other things where perhaps the function is critically important, but people aren't so obsessed with the pixel perfectness of every little detail. So the bar that you've got to aspire to is extremely high, and you really got to I guess to understand that, and it's tough. But what it does do, and what we've experienced, is it makes you better. It makes you raise your own quality bar as a result, which is really, really good. And I think kind of understanding that and understanding that this sector is different, it's really important. You don't try and wing it. Don't think, games, it's just the same as what we do. There's just a slight difference to it. So we know how to do this. Really take the time to understand the environment.
Yeah, I think you'll get onto this probably later, but it kind of ties into what you're saying now, in that because games is the hot topic now, and games, everyone knows now that games is a booming industry and people are taking notice of it. It's very easy to kind of try and bandwagon it and be like, oh, games is hot, I'm going to do that. And you can blag to a certain extent, but sooner or later, because of the points you've just mentioned, like, you'll get found out really quickly. And if you're not ingratiated in the industry and you do truly understand it, like, you will get found out, and then people will lose interest, and you'll probably have done yourself more damage by trying to get on the bandwagon than maybe just staying in your lane. Or if you are going to make the jump across, like we did, is you make that jump and you jump with both feet, and you make sure you understand the industry and you're involved in the industry. It's not something that you can kind of part-time do it well. You're either doing it and you're doing it well, or don't do it.
Absolutely, and like that whole bandwagon thing is absolutely true. Like, people are seeing the investment, the numbers, the participation, and understandably, kind of brands and services. It's like, oh yeah, we want a piece of that. But if you are not doing it from a position of authenticity, if you can't relate and understand that yes, this is a significant sector, and the audience and the professionals within the sector are so passionate. Like I say, you're going to be sniffed out a mile off, and just don't do it. Find that it is going to be so easy to find somebody within your organization who is as passionate as anybody else in that industry about games. So bring them along. Like, ask them, get their perspective, get their opinion, because you have to be authentic. And if you're like one of those people who's I understand games, I used to play games when I was a kid, and I can do this. If you think actually, it's a bit of a waste of time, or it's for kids, or things like that, you're just not going to be able to connect to the audience that you're trying to engage with. And that kind of leads on to our next point, which is it's really important, in my opinion, certainly, that you if you're approaching this industry and it's new to you, you need to think about how can you deliver value. And what I mean by that is not when you've sold something, can you then deliver value? Before you've sold something, how can you give value? You have to invest. For ourselves, we kind of took a view on the industry. We had a look at the skills and experience we had. We did a lot of events and hack days and things like that, community building that we'd done. And I saw that as an opportunity to bring value to the industry. So this is where we created our event series, Rocket Jump Events. Really, we put this on. We took a back seat and we said, okay, they don't want to hear from us. But they do want to hear from each other. They want to hear from their peers and their professionals. So we arranged these kind of micro conferences and engaged with speakers or people who had an interesting story to tell within the sector. And we funded it. We paid them. We paid for venues. We sponsored the event, and just got everybody in the room. And we were there as a participant and as kind of like an enabler of the conversation. But it wasn't about me getting up on stage telling everybody what we did and how we're so great. It was just like, no, everybody get some value out of this, enjoy this. We're here in the corner if you want to come and have a chat. But yeah, and I think that kind of like was a really good way of, I guess, demonstrating our authenticity, because it's the same in any industry, but it's especially so within games. People are weary. People are going to be hesitant and are very, very skeptical. As we said at the beginning, like the hard sell is not going to go down well with anyone, and that's probably magnified for people within the games industry. The next point, which is kind of a golden rule of selling and networking and just meeting people, is the golden rule, which is be interested, not interesting. So when you are engaging with people within the industry, ask, don't tell. Like, you just find out about these people. Ask them what they do, how do they do it, what are their challenges, and be genuinely curious. Again, there's nothing that's going to put people's backs up than somebody steamrolling into a conversation and making it all about themselves. You've got to be interested. And that works across so many levels, not just in selling, but like I say, networking, building your peer group. Like, people like to be consulted and asked questions and given the opportunity to talk about themselves. And if you do that, then you will build a rapport. You will learn a lot in the process. Like, you can't just ask questions and not listen. You have to listen. You have to be attentive, just be empathetic and learn as much as you can from people. I don't think you can ask people enough questions. And when people get given the opportunity to talk, then you're kind of giving them a bit of a pedestal, giving them a chance to be recognised. And that will put you in good stead, and eventually, the conversation will come around, and people will start to ask the same of you, and that is when you have an opportunity to say a little bit about yourself. But absolutely prioritize being interested, not interesting.
Yeah, I guess when you're selling something, you're trying to solve a problem, and you need to understand what the problem is. And if you don't take an interest in what that problem is, you wouldn't effectively sell anyway. But yeah, if you really need to understand that. So if you just go in with that, not listening, then you are doing the hard sell, and that's when people shut down. You'll often find that if you were going in trying to sell a set thing, if you're a service provider, obviously if you sell a product, it's slightly different. But if you're a service provider trying to sell, and you go in with an idea in your head of what to sell, that it might be not what the person you're speaking to actually needs. If you take that interest, you'll understand what they need, and then you can build a relationship from there, and then you are selling, but it becomes less salesy, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely agree with what you're saying there.
Absolutely. And another interesting sort of challenge really for engaging with the games industry is, as I mentioned, this bar is so high and the quality and the output is so great that actually you are engaging with extremely capable teams. And with that capability comes a confidence, and there is kind of a tendency for games businesses, game studios and publishers to prefer, again, it's not exclusive to games, but it's definitely pronounced within the industry, to kind of like do it themselves. Like, we can do this because we're so capable and competent, and we've got the world's best visual designers, artists, audio engineers, player behaviors, UX experts. Like, there's so much capability there that the first port of call will be internally. Like, they will in-house as much as possible, and there's no fighting that. And actually, if anything, you kind of just want to support that and empower that. But certainly, from my observations, in any successful games business journey, there's kind of like a tipping point where there's a realization that our most important time, our most valuable hour, is something I've been saying lately, is spent creating this game experience. And doing anything other than that is potentially a bit of a distraction. And again, it's a high passion industry, and that's what people want to be doing, is creating the player experience, creating the game. And if all of a sudden they've got to be dealing with these kind of external factors that aren't directly about creating the game, there's a point at which they'll come around to the idea, actually, maybe there is somebody else that can do this stuff because it's not the best use of our time. And if you've proven yourself, if you've done these other steps that we've said, you've been authentic, you've engaged, you've understood, you're solving the problems of the industry, that is when you get your opportunity to introduce your specialism and your expertise. So yeah, again, just there's an element of kind of patience and understanding and empathy, and yeah, not trying to fight the tide, that you are dealing with some incredibly talented people, and they probably can do an at least decent job themselves, if not really, really good job. So you mentioned about kind of staying in your lane, like that's so key, and I've seen numerous people sort of at varying stages of their engagement with the video games industry, that they've done this thing where they are enthusiastic, they are authentically engaged in the industry and what the industry does, but like as everybody does when we engage with a digital product or get an experience as a consumer, we start to form an opinion. And if you are trying to sell into this industry, I think it's really important to understand your remit and your area of expertise, and not just be like, oh yeah, I've played loads of games. What you should do is, what would be great is, and start trying to tell like 10, 20, 30 years experienced game designers what they should do with their game. Like, stay in your lane, understand that maybe they might know a thing or two about this process, and leave them to it and support them with what you do. Don't try and do what they do. You help them focus on what they do best. It really doesn't land well. Somebody coming in with no real experience or no real position to tell people how to do their job.
Definitely. There's nothing more annoying than when that happens. So, don't do it to people. We don't like it.
Yeah, and that leads on to like my next point being like, games is a $200+ billion industry. Like, that is a huge, vast enterprise sector. It's also absolutely tiny. There is a very small community of people, and this is one of the great things about kind of like, I guess, selling or taking the sales role into the games industry is, yeah, that first time you go to an industry event, it's kind of always that awkward, like, oh, I don't know anyone, how do I approach people? Second time, third time you go to a games industry event within the UK, for example, and potentially even internationally, you walk in that room and you will start seeing people that you have met before. It would be this the kind of the community of people is it's growing all the time, but it's still a very small and the industry talks. There are all sorts of back channels, little pockets, little communities, regionally, discipline based, all kinds of like diversity initiatives, and if you're an asshole, the industry will know about it.
Yeah, so, everyone knows you're an asshole.
Yeah, which
don't be an asshole.
Basically, yeah, it shouldn't need to be said, but kind of when you consider the I guess the stereotypical salesperson role that we all think of, the used car salesman, the swagger, like that's not gonna resonate, and yeah, word travels fast. So be extremely mindful, be extremely self-aware, which is I think something that we can all always be better at, but do understand that there is a finite amount of, no matter how many players there are a significantly smaller number of people working in the industry, and there are even smaller number of that are kind of working in these kind of business development and kind of out in the networking roles and things like that.
I think that goes back to what you were. Sorry, I think that goes back to what you said before about adding the value and being interested. If you do those things, you'll develop a good reputation. So you'll get the positive side of the fact that it's a small industry and people talk. So it's not just be wary so that you don't come across as a bit of an arse. But if you do the right things, people will get to know you as a good person. So that's you can that's the positive side of that. So yeah, just be nice and people will know you're nice and want to work with you. Next selling so much easier.
It can't be overstated that you have to make people's vision your objective, not your vision. That's why it's such a great place to be, because there are some amazing projects out there, amazing games being made. Like, you get to work with and engage with these super creative, super passionate people, and it's well worth the effort, but you've got to do it from a selfless position. The reason we engage with it is for exactly those reasons. Like, we want to be involved in these kinds of projects. We're in absolute awe of the work that gets done, and the technical achievements. We're a bunch of technically oriented people, and it's just like one of the greatest things for us is that as a technical service delivery partner that we are pushed to our absolute limits, because there are people serving games across the world to millions of players at near real time. So when that's the bar we have to live up to, that really pushes us. So it is a real sort of privilege to get to engage in that, but you've absolutely got to do it from like what is the objective here? It's to create great player experiences. So how can we help do that? Not how can we sell what we do and make loads of money for ourselves. So don't be pushy, always add value, and that would be my guide to selling into the games industry. And don't be an asshole is the simple summary, I guess.
Yeah, that's the title of this talk.
Excellent. Well, Ben, thank you very much for joining me for this. Thank you, Tyre, for sharing the news with me. That's it for today's show. And we'll be back next week, as we always are. If you haven't already, hit the follow button down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Etch Play on all your favourite social media platforms. We've got loads of things that we share. Tomorrow is Friday. We'll be sharing our weekly roundup where the team share kind of their observations of the week and what they've been working on or playing and enjoying. So do check that out on the Etch Play blog. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Bye. I think you sold that topic really well, Dan.
Much Dan. Let me try and say something funny at the end.
Oh, that was the funny bit. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
They're not all winners.